At this point, everybody's heard about the Nintendo oopsie that was the pricing. Whether they consider it to be an oopsie themselves or not still remains to be seen, because it's possible that they actually think that they screwed up, but I haven't seen like clear confirmation. They have responded to it, and we'll touch on the response that they gave, because they basically sent out the vice president of product and player experience of Nintendo America. They sent out some people like Doug Bowser to talk about this with press after a very stressful weekend, I'm sure. And there's also been some reporting from like Yahoo Tech, following from Games Radar. You can see they basically like mirror the article here, but they say Nintendo is likely surprised, panicked, and having a full war room response to the outrage over Switch 2 pricing, former marketing lead says. And in essence, the people there was also another person who used to work at Nintendo, like in their PR department, basically, and they've all said Nintendo is freaking out right now. Like, company-wise, they're not used to crises like this. I even shared a tweet. You might have seen it. Let me see. Scroll. Yeah, during the Treehouse Live event that they had, like the day after the announcement, I pulled it up, and it was literally just flooded with people either screaming, drop the price, or people joking and be like, make it 200 pounds per game, raise the price, and like quadruple the price. And I've never seen anything like this. Like, everybody disliked this. It's one of the few things I've seen that really truly has brought the gaming community together. It's really impressive, because already the 450 price point kind of it's like, that's like $50 more than I was expecting. But I get it. Like, things are expensive. You know, there are tariffs already outstanding at the time that was announced. Okay. And then later that day, they announced that they were going to increase tariffs on like Vietnam, for example. And one of the things that Nintendo did that was quite sneaky was they started to assemble Switch 2 consoles and packaging in Vietnam and some other countries as well. But in Vietnam, my understanding is predominantly. And they did that because the tariffs were lower. So they're like, oh, we won't get dinged by having the consoles assembled in China, so we'll have them assembled elsewhere, and we can bypass the tariffs that way. Well, the current administration saw that and was like, nope. And so they put like a 46% tariff on Vietnam exports into the US. So all of a sudden, like, all profit for the Switch 2 gone. Like that, Switch? Gone instantly. Very, very, I mean, and apparently they didn't anticipate that because they immediately indefinitely delayed the pre-order date. So the pre-orders were supposed to go live in 2 days on the 9th, I believe. And now that is indefinitely postponed in the US. You just won't be able to pre-order one because they don't know if they're going to even make a profit at all at the current 450 price with the current tariff outlay or outlay, whatever. So they've just put it on hold, basically. And everybody is upset about the price of the console because it already was a lot. And now it looks like they might even raise the price even more, where it could start to approach like the $600 mark, which would be crazy. Because already at $450, people were like, I don't know. The big chungus wongus problem, though, is the pricing of the games. And this is one where I have not seen a compelling argument in defense of it, frankly. Some Switch 2 games will cost $80 for digital, and the physical versions will cost up to $90 starting. This does not include like Ultimate Deluxe Gold, whatever editions. This is just where they will start. And this was paired with some other announcements that like some of these physical boxes, these physical copies, will either be game key cards, which do not include anything in the game or in the box cartridge wise. It's literally just like, or in this case it would be a cartridge, but it's just like it requires a download. It's just basically a key card you put into the Switch that tells it to download the game. And then in some of these, like for the next gen update versions of these different games, or the Switch 2 enhanced edition of various games, the physical version in some cases will just be a code inside that you have to put into the eShop and then download. So it's literally just a case you're buying for an extra 10, 20 bucks to get plastic that sits on a shelf but literally serves no purpose, because once you download the game through the code that they give you, not even a key card that tells the console to download something, but literally just a code you enter. It's just plastic at that point. So people naturally are kind of frustrated. Already this type of thing would be unpopular even if pricing had stayed the same, but people would kind of just roll their eyes and get over it. Paired with the price hikes, everybody's ticked off because it just screams greed. And you guys know me, I've been perturbed in the past because I feel like people throw out the term greed very loosely, and I feel like it diminishes the value of the word when it actually applies, because I feel like some people will throw out like greed, even with something like GTA 6. I'm hesitant to use the word greed if they start that game at $80, for example, because that game, according to like multiple reports, will cost somewhere between $1 and $2 billion to make. Billion. And at that point, if you're like, yeah, I think we need to increase the base price, I'm like, you know what? At least I kind of get that. You're providing a product that was the most expensive entertainment thing in human history. Forget movies, forget, you know, sporting events, whatever. This one game will be the most expensive entertainment product in human history. So if they want to raise the price, at least I get it. I think it's bad for the industry because everybody else will then raise prices, but at least I get it in that case. But I'm sorry, like charging up to $90 for Mario Kart starts to feel really greedy. It just does. They're also going to be doing paid upgrades to current games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. They're not going to include those for free. And they are adding some stuff like a companion app experience, which I'm sure 7 people will use. But already that, I don't like that. I think, you know, you see some of these next gen upgrades they give on PC, for example, for free. Xbox has given next gen upgrades for free. Even PlayStation in the past has given next gen upgrades for free. So to see Nintendo just setting the standard, nope, it's a pack. It's the next gen upgrade, Switch 2 upgrade pack. I don't like that. And when you pair it with all of the other stuff, again, it just looks like they are trying to nickel and dime people across the board. And perhaps like the most clear-cut, hilarious and like kind of depressing thing is that Nintendo created basically their own Astrobot. They basically created their own Astrobot, which is Nintendo Switch Tour, which is this thing that they showed during the presentation. And they are charging, I believe it's $6 for this. And it's literally a tutorial and an explanation and like tech demo of what the console can do. Oh, it's $10, you guys say. 10, there you go, 10. At 6, I thought it was too expensive. 10, what are we doing? And there's been other articles that have come out, you know, since this reveal, such as Reggie Fils-Aimé. Apparently he had to basically beg the people in Japan, the head honchos of Nintendo corporate, to include Wii Sports with the Wii in the box for free. He was like, please trust me, it will sell the console, it will help this blow up, it'll be iconic, just include the game for free. Because apparently Nintendo just has a company culture where they just feel like they shouldn't give away their work for free. They just don't understand it. They don't think that they should have to do that. They're like, no, we developed this, we're proud of it, you're gonna pay for it. And it's just the idea of bundling it or being charitable to their customers is just insane, or giving like a little something to help explain why this console's cool. That's just a foreign concept to them. So they are charging $10 for this, and it's just laughable in my view, because already, I mean, for this, I would say this is kind of low effort even for a tech demo, because it's literally just like scattered, you know, button prompts to talk to NPCs, basically, to just tell you about the console and what this button does and how the magnets work. It's just kind of already it feels bad. And then you again pair it with everything else going on, it feels really, really, really bad. And for the first time in a long time, I've seen, and I think you guys have seen it too, a lot of even like streamers, content creators, even like Switch and Nintendo focused creators themselves are coming out being like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy this at launch. I'm not gonna do it. I can't really get behind it. I think it's just greedy across the board. One of these I could see people putting up with, but when you stack it with everything else, it really does just start to come off like Nintendo thought they were untouchable. Nintendo thought everybody would see Mario Kart World and a new Donkey Kong game and would be like, take my money. Like the meme, shut up and take my money. They really thought people would respond that way. It's just, I think that they've been really shell-shocked by the response. And I think, you know, you see the corporate guys that are looking at like the feed of the Treehouse Live event and they just see it all. Drop the price, cut the price, drop the price. I think that freaks them out. Because again, Nintendo is not, I don't think... They need this to blow up, and they already were probably like a little iffy because it's not like a full total new thing like the Switch was compared to the Wii U. This is kind of like an iterative improvement, and it will be an improvement, but it's just, again, this is quite greedy, it seems, quite greedy. And so now they've responded, okay? They've responded. During a sit down with IGN, Nintendo of America's Vice President of Product and Player Experience, Bill Trinan, was asked about the pricing decisions by the company. Right off the bat, Trinan justified the decision to charge $80 due to the game's value to players. He said, quote, I would say it's less about the strategy of pricing Mario Kart World. It's more just whenever we look at a given game, we just look at what is the experience, what's the content, and what's the value. They also are looking at the fact that the last game sold like 70 plus million copies, and they know that people will buy it. Everybody I know that owns a Switch owns Mario Kart. It's kind of like a no duh. That and like Smash, everybody's buying a copy of that game. So they thought, hey, if we can raise the price by $10, they'll pay it because everybody wants it. Why not? But honestly, this is a game that is so big and so vast. You'll find so many little things in it to discover. And there's still some other secrets remaining that I think as people end up buying and playing the game, they're going to find this to be probably the richest Mario. That's a good choice of words. The richest Mario Kart experience they've ever had. Interesting. On the topic of Nintendo Switch 2 games charging $80, Trinan again said it's because of the value Nintendo sees in its games for players. What I would say is that we just look at each individual game and we look at the content and the value of the game, and then we say, what is the right price for the value of this entertainment? This I guess their strategy in response to this is just to be like, yeah, we think it's worth 80, and so we're going to price it at 80 and you're going to like it. Like, that's literally all they're doing. What I would probably counter to some of that is what you're looking at is for the Switch 2 edition. That's the physical price for somebody that has not bought the base game. Okay. For somebody who has bought Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, the upgrade packs for those are $10. And if you happen to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack member, so if you're giving them money elsewhere, both of the Zelda upgrade packs are inclusive within that membership, so there's no additional charge. But I think overall, our general approach is really just to focus on what's the content, what's the value, and what's the appropriate price based on that. Which, yeah. Again, the whole strategy just seems to be, we're going to price it what we think we can get away with, and that's what we're doing. And that's the end of it. Doug Bowser, he is, I believe, the president of Nintendo of America, but what he said was, what you see right there is variable pricing with regard to the pricing of some at 80, some at 70. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. I think they literally, like by definition, have set a mark on the bench of where you can go. They have raised the ceiling, because the ceiling used to be 70. And all of the discussion was, when you go to 80, that will set a new ceiling for where companies can go. And once the first company sets the price point at 70, for example, with NBA 2K, I think it was 21, you see a lot of other companies announcing that they're going to 70. And then that becomes the new standard. Eventually people feel like that's just the new AAA price. And then what do you see? $60 games then feel like they're at a discount. Companies that price at 60, it feels like they're being charitable, they're being generous, when all they're doing is pricing it what was the max price a month ago. But when you see something like Baldur's Gate 3 release at 60, it makes it feel like you're getting an amazing value, which you are compared to the $70 games. But just because, like, the reason it feels like a discount is because the ceiling has been raised. And so for Nintendo to act like that's not happening is just so insulting to the intelligence of everybody involved. I find it's past the point of laughable. It's just insulting, I think, because they're acting as though, well, no, we just thought Mario Kart's worth $80, so that's just what we're charging. And you know, that really has nothing to do with anything else. And it's like, no, there's a reason. I said during the showcase when all of this was coming out, like in the hours after when we were streaming, it's like, I think the company that is most giddy about all of this, like it's the big companies. It's the companies like Activision. It's, you know, the companies like Take-Two. They're going to be able to start charging $80 base price for all their games, and they don't even have to be the bad guy anymore. You know, Take-Two for GTA 6 now, if they price it 80, they won't even be seen as like the really bad guys in that situation because they didn't do it first. Like Nintendo's just absorbing all the heat for that. And I really think they thought that because they are Nintendo and because it's Mario Kart and everybody loves Mario Kart, right? They just got isolated and they got in their own little bubble, and they just didn't realize how out of touch they were. How is it legal? I mean, how would it be illegal? They can price things wherever they want. They could charge $500 for Mario Kart. They could do that. That's fine. I don't think anybody would buy it, but they could do it. You know, nobody's saying that it's illegal or anything, or that there's anything, you know, criminal or anything going on. It's just pricing. You know, if I go to Starbucks and they price a coffee at $7-8, I scoff at that and I don't buy that coffee. Same with when you price. I know that's now like the standard price of a cup of coffee there, but that is kind of my point, which is why I make coffee at home. But with games, it's similar, where like you price a game at 100, a lot of people are going to start scoffing. And I just think Nintendo was so out of touch with gamers that they thought that they could do this and people would just roll over and take it because it's, you know, it's a Mario Kart. People love Mario Kart. But now they're kind of panicking, which seems to be the point. And this brings us to perhaps another important piece, which is that I think everybody understands that there are probably games that are worth 80. Like I would pay $80 for Baldur's Gate 3. I think that game is phenomenal. I'd pay $80 for KCD 2. I think that game is worth $80. The reason I'm glad that those companies didn't push to that point, and the reason why I don't think anybody should push to that point, is because of what it does to the rest of the industry. I think it raises that ceiling. It makes the hobby more expensive. And so you know, just because I think they could, and I can understand how in terms of value that could make sense, I don't want to see it, and I wouldn't be happy about it. Even if I saw like Elden Ring 2 announced and they're like, yeah, it's going to be 80, I'd be like, I get it. If it's anywhere close to as good as Elden Ring was, I get it. You know, that game, where, I mean, it was worth every penny of the 60 I think they charged for it. I don't think it was 70, I think it was 60, but I could be wrong. But it was worth every penny I paid for it, for sure. But I still think it's bad for the industry if that bar is raised, if that ceiling is lifted. Which is why I think it's good to see the community kind of coming together and everybody's kind of holding hands and be like, yeah, this is like, you know, screw you. I think it's good because hopefully it's a wake-up call to the other companies that are realizing that this is the drama they can expect. And now, like, all of the discourse around the Switch 2 has been pretty much whittled down to pricing. You know, I think Nintendo was hoping that people would be excited, they'd be giddy at the prospect of a new Mario Kart, playing Cyberpunk on Switch, you know, Donkey Kong, and instead nobody's talking about that. It's all just pricing, even on Nintendo channels.
Edgar Vasquez donated $10 through Super Chat. I hate that you said it, but I would absolutely pay 80 and even 100 for Elden Ring 2. It's my favorite genre and From Software has me hostage. Minus Duskblood cause I hate Nintendo.
Yeah, even Duskblood. I mean, I think, so bringing that into it, thank you again for the Super Chats, guys. I'll catch up on all of the others too. It's just the $10 and higher get read aloud. So I kind of react instantly. But I do want to say that I've been surprised that the Duskbloods discourse has been also totally sucked out of the room. Pretty much the instant that people found out that it was multiplayer, which is, again, just fascinating, because I thought that there would maybe be some resistance to it, or at least interest from some. But instead, the discourse has pretty much been whittled down to this, like Ashen once said on X, I can't defend FromSoftware anymore. And it's just this meme. We really appreciate your single player games from gamers. Then just the finger, Night Rain, the Duskbloods. And Miyazaki actually had to come out during their like developer interview for Nintendo, and he had to say, no, we're still making single player games. Even though our last 2 games have been multiplayer or will be multiplayer, we're still working on single player stuff. But it's why I told you, like, no matter how amazing a developer can be, you just have to be braced that at any time, for business reasons, for even personal reasons, maybe Miyazaki just wants to buy a yacht and he's like, hey, I'm going to get bonused out if I make 2 live service games that print money for the parent company. So he's like, yeah, let's just do that. Let's just do that. I've heard stories that like even potentially some of like Fallout 76, some of that was potentially because of what some upper leadership and some upper head honcho people at BGS wanted to achieve in their personal lives, which is why they kind of pushed for that. I was talking to somebody just this past week who was like, yeah, I've seen Todd out and about. He pulls up in his Lambo or McLaren, whatever it is. He's like, yeah, the dude drives like crazy nice cars. He's loaded out the gills. And I'm sure some of that money came from pushing some of those things, you know? It's not a mistake. Some of these guys make a lot of money on successful live service games. You think of the guys that ran Bungie, owned and ran Bungie for years and years and years, and then they sell to Sony and make $3.7 billion collectively. And so all of that, you know, is a factor here. So you just never know. But I think for From Software, why they're doing Night Rain, I think Night Rain exists almost entirely because they needed to develop the network code to make the Duskbloods. Why they're making the Duskbloods on Switch, I think, is probably a collaboration thing between From Software's parent company and Nintendo. I think there's a ton of money involved there. And as a result, they made this exclusive. And the reason Nintendo wanted the Duskbloods instead of like a spin-off game or something that was more traditionally single player is because all of Nintendo's strategy this generation seems to be tied to online stuff. Everything is about having an online internet connection. Everything is about downloading from Nintendo's servers. Everything's about discouraging physical media and getting you to buy the digital version because it's cheaper than the physical version. Everything is about pushing you to become a Nintendo online shop member or whatever they call their membership online. And I know some people are like, it's only $20 a year right now. Yeah. Their whole philosophy this generation is to get you there. Do you really think they're never going to raise prices? Do you really think they're going to announce after all of this, yeah, we're going to push all this online stuff that's very expensive for us to run and we're just going to give it away for free? No, their whole idea is to get you onto that platform, locked into these games, get you excited for the Duskbloods. So you buy into that game, you buy the online account membership, which will be required to play that game, by the way. And then you keep that subscription for months or a year or 2 years or 3 years, and they're getting paid every step of the way with really high margins. It's so transparent. That's what the goal is here. And I think that's really likely the only reason Duskbloods is a multiplayer game, because they want you to get there. Like yeah, exactly. The C button on the controller stands for cash. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, because it's a chat button to use Nintendo's online tools to chat with people through a worse version of Discord. And that will also require a Nintendo Online membership, which they're trying to get you to buy into. Like every step of the way, it's just about milking you dry for more and more money. And I think, again, that is the entire goal. I mean, I really think there is no alternative explanation than they're just trying to be really, really penny pinching. Or penny pinching makes me think of like saving money. I don't think they're trying to save money. I think they're just trying to milk people dry. So I don't think anything really changes, frankly. Some people were like asking on social media, they were like, oh, do you think Nintendo's gonna get scared and get like cold feet and lower the price or something? No, I don't think so. I think they are going to push it out. And like I said, I think the Switch 2 does well initially. You know, if they end up raising the price to $600, all bets are off. If they raise the price further because of like the tariff stuff, all bets are off. And I think that Nintendo knows that too. I think $450 was already a stretch. If they have to price it at $600, I don't know why on earth anybody would buy that. when they could just wait 6 months or a year, get it on sale, or when tariffs drop or whatever. If it goes to 600, I think all bets are off. But if it stays at 450 and all of that, you know, ceteris paribus, all else equal, I think it does well in the first year. But I still insist, I think that the long-lasting effects on the more casual gamers are significant. I think that, you know, the dad walks in to buy his kids a Christmas present and he looks at the shelf and he sees that the Switch 2 is $450 or more potentially. And then each of those new games that are physical sitting on the shelf at Target, Best Buy, whatever, he sees those. Some of those are like $90. I think he like rolls his eyes and goes across the aisle, gets him an Xbox with a Game Pass membership. Because without a doubt, at this point, like, Xbox is far and away the best value for the casual gamer. It just is. Like, you don't have to like it. You don't have to be subbed yourself, but you can't really argue with it at this point. And it goes back, and, you know, this all brings me, I think, to an interview from a while back that Phil Spencer gave that we actually talked about here on stream. Zakin Klut on X brought this up and shared the clip. But before we look at it, I just want to remind you, in business, okay, in corporate globalized markets, okay, like I said, this is my bread and butter. I studied this in college. Everything is about make number bigger. Everything is about growth. If your company is not growing, it's perceived as dying, okay? Same with your industry. If your industry is not growing, it's dying. Yeah, here we go again. Exactly. I didn't specifically mention my degree, though. See, I was like, I studied this. I got out on a technicality. But everything is about growth, okay? And the problem for the games industry the last like 2 years has been that the industry has not grown. It's actually kind of plateaued. I think there's a few factors going on. For one, I think it's because in COVID and like in the midst of COVID and coming out of COVID, there was a ton of money being spent on new setups. I think there was a ton of money being spent on people upgrading to the next gen. I think people were buying into a lot of new hardware. They were using their stimmy checks to get streaming equipment because everybody wanted, when they were staying home, to get into streaming Warzone and stuff like that. So there was a ton of money being spent. And in the last couple of years, like, people haven't needed to upgrade their setups. So peripherals, hardware sales, they've pretty much flattened out. Because if you bought a new computer 2 years ago, it should be good now. If you bought a new console setup, a new TV 2 years ago, you're pretty much good. Same with like game sales. People are more picky now. There's been a lot of flops. People are more suspicious now when they see a game trailer. They're very hesitant and cautious and skeptical, which they should be, because there's a lot of slop that gets shoved out there. And so it's just sort of a reflection of what happened in the midst of lockdowns and the pandemic and everything, and we're still feeling the ripple effects of it even now. But I think that's why the growth was so great during there, and now it feels like it's plateauing in comparison, because it was, you know, it's just, those were exceptional times through and through. But it takes me back to an interview with Phil Spencer where he talked about this. Let's see if they include the question.
And today there's really two choices.
So this is in response to the industry not growing, okay? The industry is not growing, so what does Xbox and every other gaming company have to do in response to the fact that the industry is not growing? Because the numbers have to go up. Again, the corporate overlords, the investors, they don't care if the industry is not growing. Something else has to happen for the numbers to rise, for you to have higher revenue, for you to have higher profits, for you to have higher everything else. Something had, like, the math is the math. You have to change some variable in the equation. And that's what he's going to refer to here.
And today there's really two choices on how do you grow the industry. Do you say I have a fixed number of players, the players that we have today, and do I find new ways to monetize those players to get more money from the players that I have?
Nintendo!
Or do you think about how do I expand the business I have by finding new players and adding those to the base of players that already play? Our focus on Xbox. And today there's...
And this, my friends, betrays the fundamental difference between like Xbox's approach this generation and Nintendo's approach. And in some ways, PlayStation has sort of taken this approach with live service. I think their goal was you have your players and they wanted to find ways to to monetize them in new, exciting ways. So you like The Last of Us, we're going to create a Last of Us live service game. You like God of War, we're going to make a God of War live service game, which they tried to do and that inevitably canceled it. Their goal was basically, we have these talented teams, we have these IP, people love it, let's make a live service version, and then we'll make more money on those people. They just forgot, I guess, or never realized that the people who like live service games or just live service in general, a lot of those audiences are different from the people that love nitty gritty narrative games, which PlayStation is known for. It was never really going to work. And so, and now what we see with Nintendo is Nintendo trying to come along and be like, okay, so you guys like Mario Kart, right? What if we charged you like even more for it and for like everything else? And then we make like a huge push for the console to be about our online offerings. And if you like these other games, you can play them on your new hardware. But to take advantage of it, it's not just going to play better by itself. You're going to need to pay us even more or have a subscription to something else we have that will include it. And so, like every step of the way, just give us more money, please. And it's just the fundamental difference in approach. You either have to charge the existing customers more and get more out of them to make that number go up if the industry by itself is not, the rising tide that lifts all boats, or you have to get your products to more people. Because if the industry isn't growing, you just have to find ways to get new players into your fold, which is why a lot of Xbox players have been frustrated, because their approach has been everything's in Xbox. Everything is like, we'll put our games on PlayStation, we'll put our games on Switch, we'll put our games on PC, of course, on Steam, whatever, because our goal is to get them in front of as many people as possible, because they still consider that to be a win. Because it's better to sell, a copy with a 30% cut taken by Steam than to not sell a copy at all. And that's basically been their approach. Now, does this mean that like Xbox is some pillar of virtue? No, it's still a multi-billion-dollar company within a multi-trillion-dollar corporation in the form of Microsoft. They are not your friends. They're not your buddy, pal. Like, just because we can like Xbox's approach more than Nintendo's does not mean that magically like they are pillars of virtue and integrity. Okay, I think they're the better of the two options right now. I think there are cascading problems that come along with Game Pass. I don't like that you're basically renting all of your games. I don't like that it basically pushes them to do paid early access with like 5-day early access in order to get more cash out of you. I don't like the fact that then over the course of months or years, as people become reliant on Game Pass, they can then raise the price of Game Pass. And if you want to keep your save files, if you want to keep, the games you've been playing for months or years, you have to just pony up and pay the increased price. There are problems with all of it, okay? There is no perfect solution to any of this, but I do think that they deserve some credit, because Xbox could have gone the route of Nintendo, what they're doing right now. I think it would have been catastrophic, and I think they would be in even like more dire straits in terms of player counts and stuff than they are right now. But I like Xbox's approach, and I think Xbox's approach is better for the consumer, certainly, than Nintendo's approach, which is to just milk you dry every single step of the way. Still, ultimately though, I think the best, if we get out of the console realm, the best possible place for you to be playing games, just frankly, is Steam. You look at how many discounts, how many sales and stuff there are on Steam. You look at the wild value that is in Steam as a platform. Even just something as simple as the ability to play a game for 2 hours and then return it if it's buggy or broken or has other problems. Just that is an amazing value and protection for customers. And it's something that you just don't have on console, and that's why ultimately the best place to play games, I still insist, is PC. It just is. But if you are somebody that wants to look on console, I mean, even now, like you see Xbox coming out and they're releasing their games on PC. PlayStation is starting to launch their games on PC, potentially even day one as well, because they're starting to get a ton of extra revenue that way. So it's just becoming, I think, the ultimate place to play. But either way, I mean, it doesn't remove the fact that what Nintendo is doing, I think, is a mistake. I think it's a mistake. And I do think it will have an effect on their bottom line. I do think the switch to, after like the first few quarters where it's going to sell well despite all this just because of hype, I do think it will ultimately have trouble keeping up with expectations, just because I think that that scoff effect in the casual market will be significant. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
Any questions?
Mr. President. To the markets today, and would you be open to a pause in tariffs to allow for negotiations?
Nope.
Well, we're not looking at that. We have many countries that are coming to negotiate.
If he pauses it, it makes him lose strength. He can't pause now.
In certain cases, they're going to be paying substantial tariffs.
Yeah, he's locked in.
There'll be fair deals. As you know, I spoke this morning with the Prime Minister of Japan, and we had a very good conversation. They're coming. And I said, one thing, you're going to have to open up your country.
Nintendo Switch.
We sold no cars, like zero cars.
What about
in
Nintendo
Japan,
Switch?
And they sold millions of cars into our country. They don't really take our agriculture, a little bit of it, just to keep us slightly happy, but they don't take what they're supposed to be taking. So we have a great relationship with Japan. We're going to keep it that way, but they're coming in to meet, and other countries are coming in. With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. So they've gone for years. They've become a rich country because of people, again, that were in the White House that allowed this to happen. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year they'd make on us on trade, and it shouldn't be that way. And I have a great relationship with President Xi. I hope it's going to stay that way. I have great respect for China, but they can't do this with just, we're going to have one shot at this, and no other president's going to do this, what I'm doing.
Probably not.
I'll tell you what, it's an honor to do it, because we have been just destroyed. What they've done to our system. You know, we have $36 trillion of debt for a reason. And the reason is that people allowed it to get that way. So we'll be talking to China. We'll be talking to a lot of different countries. And I think, you know, if we can make a really fair deal and a good deal for the United States, not a good deal for others. This is America first. It's now America first. And we didn't put America first. We put America last. The people that were in the Oval Office put America last, and we're not going to stand for it. Yeah.
It's Biden. Yeah. Holy fuck, man.
Two questions. Do you expect any of these deals to be made before April 9th? And secondly, there have been some mixed messages from your administration. You're talking about negotiations, and yet others in your administration are saying that these tariffs are actually permanent. What is the action?
Well, it can both be true. They can be permanent.
Well, they're permanent if they don't negotiate. That's obviously.
Because there are things that we need beyond tariffs. We need open borders. You know, we almost had a deal with China where we're going to open up China. It was almost done. Some of you remember it during my first term, and it was very disappointing. We ended up making a great deal. $50 billion worth of product was sold. $50 billion. You'd like that in Israel. And I made that deal, but it wasn't the deal that I wanted. It was the deal that I wanted was that, plus they were going to open up China so that our companies could go into China and compete with other countries and China for the, you know, for a large number of people. And at the very end, that deal was terminated, and we went to a piece of the deal. And there are a lot of things outside of tariffs, but tariffs are very important. But there are a lot of things like opening up countries that were totally closed. China's essentially a closed country. In fact, it is a closed country. And what they do is they charge tariffs so that if you sell cars or if you sell anything, nobody's going to buy it because the price is out of control. But that's true with a lot of other countries also. So we're going to get fair deals and good deals with every country, and if we don't, we're going to have nothing to do with them. They're not going to be allowed to participate in the United States.
God damn. He doubling down, yeah.
Mr. President, we have time. This gentleman is all day long.
Yeah.
Mr. President, many of
Just settle the fuck down.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Many of Palestinian Americans who voted for you and not for Biden because you've promised them to end the war in Gaza.
Very honored by that, too.
The war is still going on and there's no hostage deal. Do you have any update on that?
Well, I'd like to see the war stop, and I think the war will stop at some point that won't be in the too distant future. Right now we have a problem with hostages. We're trying to get the hostages out. We got quite a few of them out, but it's a long process. It shouldn't be that long. We have a big problem that we've done. I think I'll ask Pete to maybe talk about it for a second, because a lot of people are asking. The Houthis, we've
It seems like the Snow White movie. It is the lowest rate.
We've been very tough and very successful militarily. We've really damaged them badly. These were people shooting down ships and other things, by the way. Flying objects like airplanes. And we've put a major hurt on the Houthis, which nobody's been able to do. We've really hit them hard, and they know it, and they don't know what to do. And it's every night, night after night. And we've gotten many of their leaders and their
just killing them.
They're experts on missiles. I mean, they actually make missiles. Nobody thought that, but they make missiles. They're highly sophisticated and they're very tough. But they've been very badly damaged. Nobody else was able to do that but us. Pete, you want to discuss that, please?
Yes, sir. It's been a bad 3 weeks for the Houthis, and it's about to get worse. It's been a devastating campaign, whether it's underground facilities, weapons manufacturing,
I love it, man.
Troops in the open, air defense assets. We are not going to relent. And it's only to get more unrelenting until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at our ships. And we've been very clear at the Iranians as well. They should not
get worse.
Continue to provide support to the Houthis, and that message has been made very clear. So we have a lot more options and a lot more pressure to apply, and we know, because we see the reports, how devastating this campaign has been in them, and we will not relent.
We have a great military. There's no military like our military, and despite Biden having given
that's what I want to hear.
Lot, but nevertheless a pretty small piece, but it was a lot of our military away in Afghanistan, and one of the dumbest situations. I think it may be the most embarrassing situation we've ever been involved in. That short period of time in Afghanistan, what a disgrace that was. But left a lot of our military behind. Left. You see them in their annual parades, where they're parading trucks that are armor plated and different things that they can't. But it's many billions of dollars we left behind. But despite very powerful.
More information at what level it's the.
Holy sh!
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you about Iran, because this is the first time we hear that the U.S. is having a direct contact with the Iranians. Is it possible to give us some more information at what level it's the U.S. is represented?
High level, very high level. And we're dealing with the Iranians. We have a very big meeting on Saturday, and we're dealing with them directly. You know, a lot of people say, oh, maybe you're going through surrogates, or you're not dealing directly, you're dealing through other countries. No, we're dealing with them directly, and maybe a deal is going to be made. That would be great. It'll be really great for Iran, I can tell you that. But hopefully, we're not going to have to get into that. We are meeting very importantly on Saturday at.
This ping cost $30,000, helped eliminate a team from Worlds, and was just the tip of the iceberg in what might actually be the most chaotic and controversial tournament in League history, which at the time was being played for the biggest prize pool esports had ever seen. But in order to understand how this single click of a mouse ended up costing more money than some players' entire contracts, and how the tournament got to the point where Riot was literally giving out free pizza and merch so that fans wouldn't leave, we'll first need to understand just how flawless League's first real world championship needed to be so that this upcoming esport could actually survive. You see, just a year before in 2011, Riot had hosted League's first ever World Championship during November's DreamHack event in Sweden in front of a crowd of about 200 people, with 8 teams battling it out for a cash prize of $100,000, and half of this prize pool eventually going to the 3-day tournament's eventual winners, Fnatic. Especially since League had only been released just 2 years prior, the success of this early event led to Riot announcing some pretty major plans for the game's esports scene in the following year, including prized events, a competitive circuit for each of the major regions, and most importantly, the return of League's World Championship, this time with a much larger prize pool and an actual trophy. Now, even though each region's competitive scene has a full season's worth of stories to tell on their own, to make a long story short, after roughly 10 months of competition, these were the 12 teams that would ultimately qualify for Season 2's World Championship, with 2 teams from China, 2 from Korea, 3 from Europe, another 3 from North America, and 1 team each from Taiwan and Southeast Asia. I know, truly crazy times these were when it came to regional representation. But hey, at least for this time around, North America didn't need to worry about any airports since the tournament took place at the LA Live venue in Los Angeles, California, setting the players in front of a crowd of a couple hundred people while hundreds of thousands tuned in from around the world online throughout the tournament's opening group stage. For the first couple of days, the tournament actually went pretty smoothly as a whole, with Riot showing that they could draw in big names and an even bigger turnout for this up-and-coming esports scene. And due to the tournament's short time span of only 10 days from start to finish, things got brutal incredibly quickly. By the end of the tournament's 12 hours straight of a group stage, a total of 4 teams were eliminated from competition over the course of 12 best of ones, with these matches already providing the tournament with some pretty hype moments, including CLG Prime's legendary triple teleport backdoor, which sealed the fate of European second seed SK.
Now we're seeing Voivod teleporting, they're going into the base, CLG are pushing into the base, Voivod got the final nexus to it, they're going to try and catch up towards Aranea, have they got the damage? The second teleport comes in, big penalty, Oriana ultimate, the nexus is exposed, and someone is just going to take the nexus down. No, Kevin gets in there, absolutely obliterates him, but Voivod drives him back, and it's won it! I do not believe the game! What an absolute epic!
With the bracket stage now set to determine who would be the first team ever to lift the Summoners Cup, the tournament seemed to be, once again, going all as planned. Well, that is until the quarterfinals, where basically everything that could go wrong ended up doing exactly that. In fact, two of the biggest controversies in Worlds history, even to this day, both came from this single series of quarterfinal matches. So to start off, let's first go back to that ping we talked about earlier, because you might be wondering how a single click of the mouse could cost anyone the equivalent of 1 month's rent in New York City. As we already know, the first part of this year's Worlds took place in an outdoor venue with a stage, announcer booths, and these really sick rotating platforms for the players to come out on. And while this was all well and good, there was a problem with the way the stage was structured, particularly with the placement of the crowd's overhead screens. Now, when you take a look at most major events today, players are often seen underneath giant mounted screens, or even sit behind them altogether, and the reasoning for that very likely came from this day of matches and the lack of consideration that if you put a giant screen behind the players, well, it would be really easy to cheat off of. Since it's a bit hard to tell from the event's head-on camera perspective, I made this rough visual to kind of show how the players were positioned compared to the layout of the stage. And as you can see, if a player looked far enough to their left or right, they would be able to easily see the full vision provided by the camera spectating the match. And in addition to the giant screen of gameplay behind them, there were literally dedicated minimap screens on both sides of the stage as well, which I mean, yeah, it does kind of feel like they were asking for it. But even despite Riot's best attempts to try and avoid this issue by telling the players that they had to face forwards at all times, during the quarterfinals things began to really unravel, as a single clear instance of cheating exposed several other players who had already screen peeked in previous days without anyone noticing, with this sneaky attempt being spotted in the first game of a ZBrush quarterfinals against TSM. Being a best of 3 elimination match between Korea and North America's first seeds, the pressure of this high stakes series was massive, and literally 15 seconds into the first game, a ZBrush ADC Wong began to crack. You see, TSM tried to start off the series with a bit of a top brush surprise by sending all 5 players top lane in hopes of collecting a quick kill, only to be caught by Shy's Jace, who had sent out a shock blast to spot the play, which seems like it was just a lucky predictive read until you watch back the tape. As you can see, just after TSM leaves their base, a ping goes down onto what should have been complete darkness to a ZBrush, and if you watch the player cams, it's pretty easy to see where the idea for this seemingly random ping may have come from. Though obviously this screen peek in of itself wasn't necessarily series defining, it did identify a secret strategy by TSM in a way that was unfair and probably wouldn't have been so easy to figure out had there not been cheating, ultimately helping a ZBrush eliminate TSM from Worlds in a 2-0 series and creating a storm of understandable controversy. And while there was even more chaos after this cheating scandal due to an entirely different issue that we'll cover in just a moment, for the time being the hunt was on for both the viewers and Riot to search through all previous footage and try to identify any other potential instances of this cheating, which as you may have guessed, they actually did find. In IG vs SK Gaming's group stage match, IG's mid laner Zatai took a very clear look over his right shoulder during a pause to determine if he was safe to face check a bush, only receiving a warning due to the lack of meaningful impact that this cheating had. Though ZBrush would end up being fined a massive $30,000 for Wong's actions due to the impact that they had on the game, TSM's top laner Dyrus was actually spotted screen peeking as well in the same series, though he would only receive a warning due to the game that he did it in being remade. During the quarterfinals following the ZBrush vs TSM series, TPA's top laner Stanley looked left then adjusted his monitor in a way that at first seemed suspicious, but was ultimately dismissed due to it seeming as if it was related to sunlight glare, and TPA already had full vision of Najin's team as well. And as for the final game of CLG EU series against Team WE's bot laner Wei Zhao took a very blatant look at the screen as well, and though this screen peek may have actually provided some useful information to the player, it wasn't deemed significant enough for anything more than a warning. But while a player cheating would normally be the most outrageous story about a series, in the case of CLG versus WE, there was a much larger controversy at hand that featured what is probably the biggest technical blunder in League's history. Now, for starters, this was supposed to be the schedule for the tournament, with a 12-game marathon on day 1, 3 of the 4 quarterfinals matches on day 2, and the last quarterfinals match taking place on day 3, with the semifinals also happening later that same day. But there's a reason I specifically said the words "supposed to," and let me explain why. After 18 games had been played over the course of World's first 2 days, poor screen placement issues aside, the production side of things had been going amazingly, with great viewership, an energized crowd, and a cool venue, which I touched on previously. And things were still going as planned headed into the second game of the tournament's last quarterfinal as well, with WE being up 1-0 and already having a respectable lead after just 12 minutes, looking to secure their spot in the semifinal. Yeah, the internet of the venue went out and disconnected everyone, and since the game still had a decent amount to go, it was remade, which really sucks for WE's advantage, but hey, at least things were fixed so they could play the game as intended, and after a painfully slow 55-minute match, CLG actually managed to bring the series to a decisive Game 3, where after a literal hour of even more boring gameplay, the series would come down to this one team fight.
Ward trying back on the way. Clearlove's going to dive in. They are going to go for this fight. Clearlove getting actually feast.
It happened again. The internet cut out, and 25 minutes into the remake of this match, it would happen another time. In fact, the venue's internet would cut out several more times throughout the day and into the night, meaning that this series ended up taking roughly 9 hours of broadcast time before it and all the games that were supposed to be after it had to be moved to where the finals were being set up for a few days later, without fans or really much of a stage. Now, to give credit where it's due, Riot did actually handle the situation pretty well for those in the audience by giving out free merch, pizza, and trying their best to keep them entertained throughout this incredibly tiring and very long day for everyone there. But if you were watching from home, you likely became way too familiar with a certain song called Silver Scrapes, which played over and over again during these technical pauses to the point that it is still played in remembrance each time a League series goes to a Game 5. So even though this early Worlds was more chaotic than originally planned, at least some good came out of it, with memes made and lessons learned that shape League's esports community even to this very day. I'd really appreciate if you considered subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, since you seem to enjoy this video. You can always change your mind later, but yeah, that being said, hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night. As always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later!
Look at this. Uh-oh. People popping off now. They're going crazy.
I love that at the end. Get in there. Get in there, police. Please do your job. All right, so much for free speech. On college campuses, protesters tore down this conservative group's tent before an event at UC Davis. The group says that
it's crazy how these people think that they have a monopoly on violence and it's not going to be used against them. Eventually, conservatives are going to start being violent towards liberals, and we're going to have a huge problem on our hands because the police are not willing to uphold the law and hold these people accountable. It's not going to be a civil war. It's just going to be a lot of like small scuffles and issues and problems. And I think this is a huge issue. And conservatives love their guns. Yeah, exactly. I'm not, but this is going to be bad. It is. And I feel like this is a huge fucking problem.
Demonstrators also ripped down the banners, smashed their phone boards, and tried to steal a laptop and an iPad from the group.
Yep.
Brandon Tatum was a guest speaker at this event. He is
because like if you're going and stealing and destroying people's property and I mean they're just taking their stuff and then walking away with it. You can't just take somebody's stuff and walk away with it. What the fuck are we talking about? This is crazy behavior, and the fact that these people aren't being immediately arrested is insane to me. It's absolutely insane. And I know what's going to happen is that eventually somebody is going to grab one of these people and somebody's going to get shot or killed. And then it's going to happen a lot more. Because if you allow one group to break the law, don't be surprised when the other group starts breaking the law too. And that's what's going to happen. Someone's going to go too far? Yeah. And also, when it does happen, nobody that's a conservative is going to care. They're going to say, finally, thank God. And that's what makes it even worse, is that you've created the conditions for people to be accepting of political violence and political, destruction of property, and to not realize that it's so destructive.
Turning Point USA contributor, is a former Tucson police officer who became very popular on social media because of his conservative law and order views, and he has millions of people who follow him. Brandon Tatum, good to have you with us today, sir. Thank you very much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me on.
So the university basically said, look, you know, nobody was hurt. This isn't a big deal. And we do everything we can to protect free speech on campus.
It's not, you're not like, no one requested medical aid, so it's okay to steal something because nobody gets hurt? What's the logic with this at all?
Campus. Is that true?
That's the biggest lie and sack of crap that I've ever heard in my life. They could not
University protected the free speech rights of campus community. Since when is free speech tearing down somebody's event? How is free speech taking somebody's stuff and running away with it? Like, in my opinion, I think these are the universities that the federal government should just completely defund. Like, if you're not upholding the law on your campus and you're allowing people to be, bullied and pushed around, I don't think, honestly, why should the federal government be giving you money if you're not following the federal law? Really? How is this even a question? Theft of property is not free speech? Yeah, exactly. It's such an outrageous statement to make. It's incredible that people even do this.
And they were not given any real effort to thwart these people who came from God knows where. We don't even know if these were students. They were completely masked. They came and assaulted people. They tore up everything. They stole property. And then they not only did it once, they came back twice. So all the police officers had every identifying marker that these people were going to be violent, and they still didn't do anything. And thank God I was.
Yeah, I mean, that's bullshit. It's total bullshit this happens. Yeah, fight back, fuck that. Eventually somebody will do that. And when it happens, as I said, these people will have no sympathy from anybody.
There and others who stood up to them, or we would have all been getting beat up and injured, when they are supposed to protect us, and we are allowed or should be allowed to have the freedom of speech on campus.
Yeah, of course. What did you say in the
if you have people that are attacking you, stealing your shit and running away with it, whenever you say something that they disagree with, this is not, you don't have freedom of speech. You don't have it. The issue is when they fight back, they are the ones who's going to get arrested. Well, this is the problem, right? It's because the police don't arrest these people proactively. And the police have allowed antisocial, violent behavior from these counter-protesters and protesters without holding them accountable. And I think this is, it goes back to what I was saying before about that kid with the knife and stabbing somebody, is that this is antisocial, violent behavior that needs to be rooted out of society at the very beginning. There's never a point where something like this is acceptable. There's never a point where we should condone this. There's never a point where anybody should be okay with it. And the problem is that people try to justify this behavior, and in the process of that, they don't realize that they're going to be justifying this behavior against themselves, because that's what's going to happen. It's not right. No, it's not.
And forth. And could you tell, were these students, or was this group sent in from somewhere? I know you said that you've spoken a lot of campuses. You've never been part of anything like this before.
Yeah, most campuses, people
they have an ACAB poster. Well, I find this to be highly ironic that, you know, really they're saying all cops are the bad cops or all cops are bastards, but the cops are the reason why you're able to do this. If the cops were actually doing their job and not being bastards, you'd be in jail.
Peaceful. It clearly was a coordinated group. They were all dressed the same. They had bicycles. They had things to conceal their identity. They came from out of sight. They weren't even on the campus mall where we were at. They came from somewhere else. They came and
if
did
there are
their
no
dirt.
cops at all, they'd be losing. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I mean, this guy is like fucking like way bigger than these other people. Like if he started hitting them and fighting them, I wonder who really would come out on top, right? And so, yeah, it's not only that. Yeah, it's like if this was allowed to go to its like obvious like biological conclusion, we all know where it would go.
And then they retreated, never to be seen again. And all of the rest of the students, although some of them were delusional, they still were reasonable and they did not attack people. So this was a coordinated effort. And the thing that bothers me the most, Martha, is that why did the police officers not do anything? I know. It's almost as if I'm the only cop there.
Yeah, look, he just tearing shit up. Like, I mean, again, you're tearing shit up. You're going crazy. Like, what are you doing?
Do anything. I know. It's almost as if I'm the only cop there. They didn't do anything to stop this. They saw them punch people and they did nothing.
It must be so frustrating for you as a former Tucson police officer when you see these other police officers. And as I said in the intro, when I hear that, you know, this guy who's just standing by, he's like, get in there. Aren't you guys going to do a little something to stop these people from destructing this property? You know, we have a list of all these Ivy League schools, government funding being cut. There's word that Brown University.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that they should, if schools allow this to happen, I think Trump should just completely cold turkey cut all of their aid. This is crazy. It's actually crazy that you're allowing people to openly break the law, be violent, and not only are you allowing them to do that, but you're allowing them to do that in the worst way possible, which is you're allowing them to be violent for the goal of political intimidation. That's like the worst way you can do it. $1 billion for a school? Why? I don't know. What would happen if they did? Well, the school would immediately change their policy. That's what they would do. The school would immediately change their policy and arrest these people instantaneously. And it would immediately stop. Do you think they're going to throw away $1 billion a year? Of course not.
He's going to lose $500 million in grants and research money. So UC Davis, do you think they were concerned about this? They put out that statement saying, oh, you know, free speech is super important to us. Like, don't come here.
Yeah.
I don't think they're very concerned about it because they didn't really do nothing about it. We were talking to the administrative people.
Schools arrest people? The campus police does. Yeah, so there are police officers that are on campuses. And if this is like it was in my high school and also in other universities, is that they have campus police.
Can you protect us? Are you going to just let these people bludgeon us? And then the police officers, or somebody's telling them to stand down. I mean, they're there, they're ready to go, but they're not going to engage. I asked them specifically, if they come back, are you guys going to use force against them to prevent them from hurting people at this table? I mean, I literally had to tell the police officers, if they come back to the table, I'm going to defend the people who are here. We're not just going to let them beat us up. And they didn't give me a clear answer. They stood there in preparation to do nothing. I guess their visible stature would be a deterrent, which is not really realistic. They have to be able to use force. And there's somebody that's telling them, I don't know if it's the chief, I don't know if it's the university. They're saying, allow people who you cannot identify to come onto campus with weapons and attack.
Listen to this. Really? Again.
Somebody that's telling them, I don't know if it's the chief, I don't know if it's the university. They're saying, allow people who you cannot identify to come onto campus with weapons and attack people and do nothing about it. They didn't even pursue to arrest anybody. They just watched them do it and they let him go.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating.
Yeah, I can see that.
I literally wanted to defend every single person there, but I didn't want to be seen knocking people out on campus.
You know, you can't
That's not what I wanted.
I'm sorry. You can't be educated if you aren't exposed to a lot of different viewpoints.
Yep.
And that is what universities are supposed to protect, free speech on their campuses. And so these people should have, at the very least, been reprimanded. We're glad that nobody was hurt in this situation, but clearly it was destructive of property. And Brandon, thank you very much. Brandon Tatum, good to have you with us today, sir.
It's crazy they're letting this shit happen.
I'm Steve Ducey.
Well,
I'm
I'm
Brian.
really surprised. I mean, what I'm surprised by is the fact that people just let it keep happening. They just let it keep happening, and I feel like they don't know where this is going to go, because like you're going to have, bro, you're going to have this is going to turn around, and it's going to be really bad. I'm going to tell you that. There's a video right there. Like it is going to be very, very, very bad. I don't care about your fake and gay stock market collapsing, boomers. You locked me in a decaying comedy block apartment over the flu and cost me my job. I'm nearly 40 in the worst job market ever in a century because of your greed and self.
Does anyone have a video on the tariffs?
I'm excited to see Clear try his best.
That makes sense in like gaming terms. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
that makes sense.
I mean, it's big, you know.
They threw a 10K gold lead.
Jungle camps away. That's always going to add.
They threw a 10K gold lead.
That's kind of messed up, honestly. I wouldn't.
Now that's the kind of stuff I need to see.
Not as Raptors.
That's the kind of stuff that makes sense.
Again, we've seen closer.
So the question then is, why the fuck did you do that? Why the fuck did you do that?
A lot of farming in this game. There's been a guys.
So why did you do that, Chad?
Stop farming. It's time to face plant under a tower. For Adicon, both ways. But you see Morgan walking up. Rudan's just picked up for Diablo.
Wait, I get it.
A lot of 2-item spikes for the side of Bro though, and they are just churning through this Adicon.
He put tariffs on
They say, well, this is one way to start 18
to make it so it's really expensive to buy things from outside of the US. So you have to buy them inside the US. I get it. But then what if the people inside the US make the prices really high? Then what?
Very weird start to the fight where like LM is so far from hype. Why are you engaging this fight? His shield's like on cooldown from tanking Adicon. Like if you won the fight, that's fine, but it seems like Bro were
Then they're
completely
cooked.
split.
Respect for the
I don't understand the stock market.
Picks up one.
I read a post saying that the stock market has lost $2 trillion.
I mean, you get a Mountain Soul on like Leona, Skarn, or Fiora.
And then when it comes back,
it's not half bad. I mean,
it lost 2 trillion, and then when it comes back, it gained 2 trillion. But from who? Where? Where? If a stock market is worth $1 million, if a stock market is worth $1 million, and it goes up, and now it's worth $10 million, where did that 9 million come from? It just appeared? Like, well, I don't get it. People put 1 million in, it goes up, now it's at 10 million.
Okay, and the frozen heart
Who?
value from Raptor,
Where's that money from? So it just lost $2 trillion.
I'm thinking of like a
It basically just lost air. That's it. And soon it'll get air back. That's it.
that we saw, but
There's actually nothing else.
heart
Or
value here, kind of crazy.
yeah, I mean, it goes.
no, I get it that people lost their money. I get that. I'm not dumb. I'm saying the overall value of the market itself. Chad, I get it that people lose money when they invest, and the thing goes down. But when it goes up, I just wonder where this value comes from. Is it just its perceived value? Is that it?
In like 3 seconds.
They're definitely gonna try.
Fearx, my ghost will always prevail. Okay.
I think it's actually done.
Apollo is gonna try to pull this wave, but I can't pull those caster minions away. Down.
So my final question then is, if the stock market is worth $1 trillion, and everyone sold all of their stocks at the same time, would everyone have $1 trillion in cash? No, right? No, not possible. No, because that money doesn't exist. Who buys it? What do you mean buys what? You have to sell to someone.
就这个版本，我们认为都被削弱的英雄，但你看到 BP 上面还是都在被办，证明削的诚意。
You have to sell to someone.
是，
Joe, why do people do this stuff? Why do you link me this? How the stock exchange works for dummies? What the fuck? I don't get it though. I still don't get it. If you have a country and you can't buy anything from anyone else, that means you have to make everything. But surely a country can't make everything, right? You need the right spawn. You need the right spawn and materials to make everything. The US doesn't have the perfect spawn. So they have to import somewhere. So how does it make sense? Then you're selling, you can sell out, but you can't buy in, and you can sell internally as well. So the supply-demand chain, the demand is up and the supply is down. Prices are up as well. That's my analysis. Is it correct? Holy fuck. I get it. I get it. What does the US not make? Are they cooked? Why is his fucking chair? Oh, he's wiggling his chair with his feet. Coffee. Okay, so coffee. The US doesn't make coffee. So what happens? Does the US start making coffee? Or do they start making coffee, buying coffee beans and then making them? But then coffee is a good example, right? Coffee. So then, if coffee shops have to buy from wherever the coffee beans, and it costs more to import them, then isn't the coffee prices going to be higher for Americans when they're buying coffee? Aren't they just going to make the prices higher? Like instead of $4, now it's $8 because it costs more. So all that's happening is he's just shitting on the own doorstep of the American people. Like, aren't the American people just going to suffer from this? Lee Sin Top! So why the fuck's he doing that?
This is gold. I have not seen this.
I'm scamming a scammer today, but I won't know if my plan works until the end of this video because as I'm recording it, my plan hasn't really come together yet. So we'll find out what happens, but win or lose, the point of this video is to tackle one of my biggest pet peeves, which is scammers calling out other scammers to make themselves look good. I guess.
Oh, this is always what happens, by the way. It's like the fat kid in class makes fun of the fatter kid in class. They're like, oh, wow, you're so fat. Like, yeah, I'm not like you.
Logic is, oh, I can't scam you. I call out scams. And what kills me is that it actually works. People fall for this all the time, and it drives me crazy. So today, I want to flip the script on one of these people and attempt to have a scammer call themselves out. It's like Inception, but for con men.
I like
this. We could call it Conception?
Ooh.
Dylan Dennis is an MMA fighter famous for two things: cage fighting and not fighting KSI. But on December 23rd, he decided to be famous for a third thing: calling out the scammers. He writes in a
smart
tweet,
guy.
Damn, Logan Paul is a scumbag. Feel bad for everyone he scammed.
True, brother.
Of course, no one's going to really disagree with this, so the likes rolled in.
Yeah.
But what Dylan doesn't tell you is
it's like shitting on Logan Paul is like free likes.
Also has a history of scamming people on Twitter, and what Dylan didn't know is that there was a detective watching him.
Ooh.
That detective was not me, actually. I wish it was me. It was my buddy Zach XBT on Twitter who said, damn, Dylan Dennis is a scumbag. Feel bad for everyone he scammed. And then Zach showed some tweets of Dylan promoting obvious scams, which then rug pulled. Now,
wait a second.
I was going to tweets of Dylan.
Check out Squid Game 2.0.
And promoting obvious scams, which then.
Ooh.
Rug pulled. Now, I was going to kind of leave it there, a little nice Twitter dunk, but
oh man.
You know, deleted scam tweets.
It's going so low that they had to use like the little fucking superscript for how many decimal points it would actually have, how many zeros there would be. They couldn't all fit on the page.
are the internet equivalent of roaches in your house.
Oh.
In both cases, if you see more than one of them, there's a lot more you don't see. So I reached back out to Zach and I said, hey, good tweet, but I want to find out how many scams exactly this guy has promoted. So Zach started digging through the garbage bin of deleted tweets, and we found out pretty quick there were a lot more, but I realized it was going to take Zach some time to get the results we needed. So
how many do you want? I love that. Yeah, it's like, so how many scams does this guy have? How many do you want? There you go. Yes,
we're going to go back to him at the end of this video, but right now I had a bigger problem, which is that to show this full scheme, I needed not only the number of scam tweets, I also needed to know how much he got paid for all this stuff.
Yeah.
For these scams he promoted. So even after looking through the blockchain, I couldn't find anything. So I needed a social engineering approach to figure out how much he got paid. I wanted to trick Dylan into giving me the amount. The rough idea was to approach Dylan and say, hey, I created this dumb NFT project that's completely fake. How much would it cost for you to promote it? He gives me an answer, and
I see. Okay, so yeah, just to get a framework for it. That makes sense.
Of my price. But of course, I realized he actually knows who I am because he's tweeting about my Crypto Zoo series.
Yeah, right.
So I can't contact him directly about this. I needed kind of someone who could reach out on my behalf who looked like he would be serious about selling you an NFT collection.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought of my buddy Oompaville. This is
yeah, he'd do it. This sounds like a guy that, you know, if you're talking about long-term financial investments, there's your man right there.
A guy who's actually really sweet in real life, but his particular profile on Twitter says NFT salesman 100%. So I contacted him to contact Dylan on my behalf. And I told him to say, hi, Dylan, I'm launching a crypto NFT platform called sour.gg and was wondering what your rate is for an Instagram story post or Twitter post for promotion. We can provide all the marketing copy. Please let me know as we're trying to launch relatively soon. Now,
damn, Brock guy gets up early. That was at 9 in the morning.
Yes, as we wait for him to respond, let me explain that sour.gg, that website is not a real crypto NFT platform. Nothing in this video is a crypto or real NFT.
Right.
So you cannot buy crypto from this. I want to be super clear as we talk about this. Not only that, the actual website we sent him to is just a landing page for one of Oompa's candy businesses, but it kind of looks...
Well, it's a candy business or an NFT line. Like, this could be an NFT right here. Look at this stupid little monkey on the right side. Yeah, I would see this. This is something that if it was still the year 2021, people would be investing millions of dollars into it. Absolutely.
A little NFT there's this little purple monkey thing in the corner.
Oh yeah, that's
so
worth at least 500 grand.
And I was actually right because Dylan immediately responds with, "Want to do a tweet?" And then I love this next part. What is it? I like the order of that. You know, like, let's promote it, and then underneath it,
what are we promoting?
What am I promoting?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's at this point I realized that this is not only my chance to find out how much Dylan gets paid for all these scam promotions. It's also my chance to test Dylan Dennis. He says Logan Paul is so bad. He feels so bad for the victims, but let's see if he's so different. So I decided that this fake NFT project I would be pitching him was going to be just like Crypto Zoo. In fact, to do this, I basically copied...
Oh, no.
almost word for word CryptoZoo's white paper saying the following. Sour.gg may appear to solely function as an NFT collection.
Which, I mean, to be fair, let's be fair to Dylan. Dylan never read either one of these, okay?
Much more. Sour allows users to earn sweet tokens that are openly traded via a yield that is based on the rarity of a given candy NFT. But just in case you didn't think it was obvious enough, I decided to leave Dylan one last hint.
Okay.
I signed off with a nonsense statement saying, quote, come obtain fun friends, enter exciting zones, indescribably lush. Look out, adventurer. Now,
that sounds like a like an AI generated advertisement for a video game.
This is a sentence which means nothing.
Yes.
Unless you lay it out by the first letter of every word. And then it spells CoffeeZilla. So
oh no.
Don't say I didn't warn him. And obviously, even if I hadn't warned him, Dylan Dennis surely wouldn't promote a Crypto Zoo project,
Can't
right?
believe this.
Because he's, you know, he feels too bad for the victims. He wouldn't promote something nearly identical. Oh, wait. He said, sounds dope.
Damn,
and
bro.
Then ETH? Question mark? And at this point, I'm just a little surprised by how easy this all is.
Of course.
Zero due diligence is being done here. We have created the weakest facade possible for an NFT scam.
They're like literally telling him this is a scam. And he's like, no, it's not. Like, no, we're literally scamming you. No, you're not. I'm not being scammed right now. What do you mean? No, I'm not. There's no way I could be getting scammed. Absolutely not.
And he's just immediately on board. Of course.
Yeah, he was wanting the money.
For a price. I mean, that is the one thing he actually did care about, which might not surprise you. And it's the one thing he actually pushed back on, because I told him I wanted to pay him $1,000.
He'd want more.
And he said, that's pretty low for me. So we negotiated and landed on a payment rate of $5,000 for a 24-hour post about our NFT project, which does not exist. After we settled on that, he sent me payment information, which really established a lot for us. We got answers.
Yeah, it told it where his wallet was and what it was, so you can look all that stuff up. Oh, yeah.
To most of our questions. First, how much he gets paid per post. And we also got an Ethereum address from Dylan, which I hoped was going to link to all his other payments.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
But I didn't give him enough credit here. Dylan gave us a brand new crypto wallet just for this transaction.
See, the reason why is that Dylan might have already been exposed for previous wallets that he had, so he's learned his lesson. Dylan's a smart guy.
Seems to imply that he probably makes new wallets for every new deal he does, which is pretty shrewd. And at this point, I realized I had a choice to make. I could take what I learned, present it to you guys, and stop this little charade I had with Dylan and make my video.
Thank God this video is
only halfway over. And Dylan would just keep doing this because his fans wouldn't know.
That's right.
Or I could try to teach him and his fans a lesson in a bit of a different way, which is actually pay Dylan to post a link to our fake NFT project. But the twist would be, as soon as he posts that link, it will become a website dedicated to every scam tweet Dylan Dennis has ever done. And remember that this website would be linked by Dylan Dennis himself to all of his fans.
Oh, God. Oh, man, Dylan. Oh, Dylan, you fucked up so hard. Oh, my God. Oh, fuck, man.
Directly showing them proof.
Fucking finesse. Yeah, this is so good.
And we'll figure out how many times, again, in just a second. But I first want to say, I thought about this a while because this plan has its own risks. I mean, the number one risk is that Dylan just doesn't post and steals my money.
Yeah, that's
possible. And then
possible.
the number two risk is, well, what if he finds out we duped him and then immediately deletes everything? We don't get our money's worth.
Exactly.
So to remedy that, because I really wanted to do this plan, was to structure the payment so that I paid him $1,000 up front, but didn't pay him the rest until he kept the tweet for certain periods of time. And to my surprise,
that's fine. Okay.
He agreed to the
sounds
terms.
Good. Right.
And so this is where I'm going to leave things with him at this point.
Because he was going to tweet it out no matter what.
I have a lot of things to do before Friday, which is the day I told him this whole fake thing is launching.
Yes.
So I'm going to go do that and go get prepared for Friday. I will see you guys then.
Okay, let's see what happened. Damn, that $10 million studio really doing work.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you slept well. I didn't sleep much at all. We're working really hard to get this whole thing figured out. So I'm just in the apartment right here, and we're going to just get ready together here. Because I got a lot to tell you guys, and we don't have time at the studio to get it all done. So I got to prepare you here. Let me just set the stage for you, though, for what's happened since I last recorded. Number one, we created SoursNFT.com, which is our actual
those look
landing
great.
page for the NFT project. It's got all these cute Candyland.
Oh wow, that's
fake
10
NFTs
grand.
That don't exist.
That's probably 50.
Now, the idea is
easily.
This is what he's initially going to promote, and then I also created our little switcheroo website.
Yes.
Which is just a website with all his previous transgressions. Now,
the fucking
I did
eyes.
talk to some people who were a bit concerned that maybe I hadn't fully been transparent with Dylan.
that maybe I should be more transparent with Dylan about what's going on so he doesn't say I trapped him in this whole thing. So what I decided to do, just to make sure we cover our bases here, is I drew up a contract for Dylan to sign before this whole thing goes live. I'm sending it to him. And in it, I lay the whole thing out. And this is what I meant by headwinds. This is where he probably will catch us, because in black and white, I lay out our whole scheme right in front of him. So it literally says, like, you're going to be the butt of the joke. It says people aren't doing due diligence. It says that we're going to be switching the website to show his prior promotions. So
yeah, I can tell you how this ends. He didn't read it. Garen fucking teed.
Lay out the whole thing there.
Garen fucking teed. He never read it.
What we're on is he's not going to read any of this. He's just going to see money and just sign it.
Yeah, because it's a big, giant black block of text.
I think it fits. Hopefully we don't end up sabotaging our own project by double checking, covering our bases here. But either way, that's what's going on. Also, ZachXBT finished finding all the scams of this guy. So we're going to go back to the studio.
That must have taken a while.
All right, I'm back, and we have the results from ZachXBT. He found over 20 projects that Dylan promoted, and then...
Holy shit! Just got this crazy Gambling Apes NFT. Excited about this one. Fire. Remember the coin Shibanu who made 15 billion market cap and ended up on Binance? Turns out he has a son. They released exactly 1 year after Shiba. Check out Mini Shiba. It's gonna be huge. The best coin I've seen lately. They reward you for every hour just by holding baby ETH. Oh my god. How can so many people be so stupid?
Tried deleting, where many of them were rug pulls and scams. It was at this point he just gave up looking for more because there were so many.
Not financial
So we
advice.
added those to the website, but I'm sure many of you are also curious about what's going on with Dylan Danis. So we're going to go check back in with our liaison, Oompa, because at this point, the whole thing is set up and it's all just resting on whether he does any due diligence or not.
Yes.
Let's see what happens.
He doesn't.
Tell us where we're at with Dylan.
So he seems to have taken the bait. There's one final step. Obviously, we have to get him to make the tweet. You just sent $10 to him, right? Just to
I wanted to bait him so that we can send the contract, and he's going to be like waiting for the money. What now? I mean, is he responding?
He said sounds good, and then shortly after he said got it, to saying that he got the $10 we sent as a test for his transaction.
Yeah.
Now comes the actual moment of truth. We're about to send the contract.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Sending it. All right, and then I'm sending the drive link.
I mean, we've sent the contract now. We're just waiting. We're literally waiting.
I wonder what's going to happen.
Dylan.
Oh, I agree, bro. I agree. What a f***ing idiot.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course.
Agreed. And you might
How
notice
did anybody not
that we weren't
expect this?
actually able to use DocuSign and get his signature because
Oh
it was
my
experiencing
God.
outages at the moment, the actual website. But we were able to just have him do a written agreement in DM so that he agreed to our terms. And although it was very shocking that he actually did it, I have to be honest. It was here that the pressure really...
Why would you be shocked by this? He wanted $5,000. I mean, I'm pretty sure it begins and ends right there. Yeah, he read it in 3 minutes, too. Yeah, exactly. Of course he didn't read it. He's like, yep, sure, for sure. I've done one of these before.
Ramped up because
it's an
at this
easy
point,
5K.
I paid Dylan $1,000, and now we're just waiting for him to post. And I'm really worried that what if he reads the document in that time and realizes what's going on?
Oh, no, he's not going to do that.
That's when Dylan gave us a lucky break, but also gave us a few curveballs.
Yeah, he's not
okay,
gonna do
big news, boys. A little update. Ahead of schedule. By the way, my heart, I cannot take this. I was already telling Upa, I was like, we have to just go forward with this because I'm not ready. I cannot take all the suspense. And Dylan texted us, hey, should I just go ahead and tweet? So we're just going to say yes. Go ahead and tweet.
Go ahead.
It's refreshing now, I guess. See what he says.
Should I do
There's
it?
been so much work that goes into this. You guys didn't see this off camera. Dylan starts talking about where's your community? So we have to whip up this community from no.
Wait, what's this guy say? most sometimes NFT hard engagement, but you know this.
Talking about where's your community? So we have to whip up this community from nowhere.
Oh, they had to make a Twitter
Our community
account.
doesn't exist.
Oh,
we had to create a
shit.
Twitter profile. We had to buy a bunch of botted followers.
Yep, smart.
An hour ago, it didn't exist.
I don't think I've ever been so excited about something in my life.
There you go.
Please, dude. Come on, Dylan.
Find followers.
He
Come on.
tweeted it.
There it is.
I can't believe he did it.
He actually did it. He just.
I would have
tweeted it.
believed
What
this.
an idiot. What? I can't believe it. What can I say?
He's not an idiot. He just wanted $5,000. Yeah, that's all.
He promoted a tweet which literally spells out in first letters the word scam.
Scam.
I hope this has been highly educational for you guys, that most of these influencers do zero work vetting these projects, contracts, and NFTs.
Well, he did do work. He vetted the amount of money that he would get. So he focused on the part that was important for him, and he made sure that he got $5,000.
If you enjoyed our work, please consider becoming a patron. High-effort investigative journalism like this takes a long time and a lot of setup, but I think you'll agree it's worth it. I also want to give a big thanks to both Oompaville and Zach XBT who helped me pull this off. Please go follow them because they're helping us get to the point where influencers will wonder when they take these deals in the future, am I agreeing to be the butt of a joke? And of course, the answer to that question when you're shilling NFTs is always yes.
That's right.
So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
When asked for a comment on this story, Dylan
Next one.
Dylan Dennis said the following. Complete lie. He changed the website completely and lied about the project that he was describing. Literally completely changed the original website, sent or deleted it. True, brother. True. When asked about the contract he signed, laying out the details of what happened, Dylan Dennis did not respond for further comment. That makes sense. He literally completely changed it. It was not that website. Then it changed it to the other website. And then how the fuck? How? What? But then how? Because it wasn't one other website. How we fucking go? Yeah, guy's an idiot. Like, I mean, what do you expect? This is such a good fucking video. Holy shit. Have I ever seen a video this good? Oh my god. This is amazing. What in the fuck, man? Show your contract. And he's like, wait, oh. And then he didn't comment. Yeah, this is so fucking good, man. These CoffeeZilla videos are just like, because it's like after the Logan Paul thing, it's like, how is this not his magnum opus? And then this shit comes out, and in a way, it's even better. Because it's just so fucking stupid. It's crazy. Like, it just keeps coming. Yeah, the news writes itself. He just keeps winning. Exactly. I love these. Yeah, if you guys like watching NFT scam videos and like this kind of journalism on bullshit like this, CoffeeZilla is your #1 spot, okay? This guy is fucking great. I've been watching his videos for a long time, and I'm glad to see they're finally, like, really popping off now. This is so, so good.
So I came across this meme that I thought was very important to share with all my Nintendo fans. And hey, this is like a fact. This isn't just to be funny. This is real stuff. The entire Nintendo 64 library could fit on one Nintendo Switch cartridge, and Nintendo could sell it to us. Now, of course, Nintendo would never do this because if they give us every game, then they can't give us, well, remakes and remasters. Nintendo doesn't have the guts to do something like that. But how much would you pay for something like this? How much would you pay to play every single N64 game on your Nintendo Switch? Let me know down below in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts.
The Last of Us Season 2 reviews are here, and in general, I mean, it's very positive. There's like 92%. You can see Justin Clark with Slant says the season is obsessed with the after effects of people choosing violence as the default. That's basically, I mean, the whole theme of the second game makes sense. As an adaptation, Season 2 of The Last of Us improves upon its source material in every conceivable way. It's the best game adaptation ever made, and then some, okay? Comicbook.com, Season 2 delivers a bigger, bolder story that will undoubtedly upset and challenge audiences. True. It's brutally raw, vulnerable, and it will likely drive viewers to tears every other episode, thanks to the powerhouse performances from Ramsey and Pascal. Daily Beast says, understanding its subject on both an intellectual and emotional level, it's a viscerally conflicted monster and continues in this second season to be the finest video game adaptation ever. Ooh, baby. Pedro Pascal is a force to be reckoned with in The Last of Us, and with Bella Ramsey and Isabella Merced, I'm not sure, matching him beat for beat. Season 2 is a powerful, rousing triumph that cements this series as the best video game adaptation ever. It's not all positive. Inverse says, frustrating, morally messy, and occasionally lovely. The second season is bigger and broader than ever, exchanging heart-melting scenes grounded by Pascal and Ramsey for relentless torture and execution sequences. Yeah, it's kind of just the second game. Boston Globe says, Season 2 may go down some roads that are uncomfortable to follow, but once again, The Last of Us delivers a beautiful misery of a story about the limits of love and humanity in a broken world. And then this one is important to note. Yes, so much of the season is spectacular, but ultimately, it's just one half of a great story. Is that enough? You might be wondering what that means. Well, they've decided to only tackle the first half of the game, basically, in this season, which is, I mean, I'm not shocked. They've already said they're not getting all the way through the second game in this season, but that does check out. So as you can see here, discussing film was not like overflowing with positivity. They did have some notes on it. The release of HBO's The Last of Us was a landmark moment for live action video game adaptations after a decade of doomed studios' attempts, which is true. It was refreshing, to say the least. Neil Druckmann, the creative director and writer, head of Naughty Dog, and showrunner Craig Mazin, who is the guy behind Chernobyl, have now returned after 2 years with a stacked ensemble cast to adapt the critically acclaimed yet massively controversial second game in the franchise, which, I mean, this is high stakes. It's high stakes. Totally new audience. A lot of people have never seen the second game. They don't know what they're getting into, so it's going to be interesting to see how it's received. But they say, ultimately, to hardcore fans of The Last of Us games like myself, the cracks of Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin's HBO adaptation have started to become more apparent in the gaps between seasons. When compared directly to the original game, the weaknesses of the first season's writing and direction were especially noticeable. Though Season 1 was well performed and looked expensive, it was awkwardly paced throughout the 9 episodes, which was too short to cover the whole 2013 game without skipping sections. Moreover, it severely lessened the subtlety and emotional impact of genuinely getting to know Joel Miller and Ellie, of course, for the first time in a tense survival adventure. It's true that I think they did a good job in Season 1, but I do think there is something to be said that when you're playing a video game, you get to know characters, you get to understand their thought processes, you get to know their approach to things, their feelings for things in a much more passive way, which makes it kind of sneaky. It makes it feel like, I don't know, you get to know them in a much more organic way, I think. But in the show, it's got to be very intentional. Like, you don't get the chance to just have passive dialogue while you're exploring levels. You have to show audiences very intentionally everything. Which makes it just feel different. It definitely feels very different. But let's see what they say. Let's see. Reflecting on the first season's flaws was a crucial step in evaluating The Last of Us Season 2. While the show has improved in many aspects and flirts with interesting adaptational choices, it's difficult to reconcile with what is lost in translation. Ultimately, the HBO series, is still burdened by the existence of the same story told better in another medium. But if you're willing to look past these weaknesses, or if you have no context as a newcomer, then the second season of The Last of Us is sincerely a better overall production. Thankfully, this season is more patient and willing to take its time to reimagine The Last of Us Part 2 with each delicate detail. Ellie and Dina's romance takes center stage. That's not That's not a shocker to me. Credit should be given to Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin for taking some of the criticisms of the first season's structural weaknesses to heart. Yes, The Last of Us Season 2 is shorter, with it being 7 episodes. However, the choice to adapt only the first half of The Last of Us Part 2, instead of trying to stuff it in one season, pays off in allowing the world to breathe. Additionally, it gives the TV series the opportunity to include many more intimate and special moments that strengthen our bonds with characters. Particularly, Ellie and Dina's relationship gets to take the spotlight. Their friends to lovers romance is as much a highlight here as it is in the game. Performances are also great, they say, and the ensemble cast is also a major strength, as they explain. And then, as you can see here, there are numerous times when overarching mysteries are answered as soon as possible, depriving us of the ambiguity that made playing the game such a captivating experience. The backlash of The Last of Us Part 2 was intense, and Druckmann understandably has been personally affected by it. Still, the choices he's made in re-editing his story demonstrate a fear of being misunderstood, which makes his writing on the show a lot less artistically interesting than the abrasive, unapologetic tone of the ambitious sequel game. And this is something I kind of expected, that they would be restructuring things, because they said multiple times that it was going to be different than the games. Like, they were going to restructure things, they were going to re-edit things, they were going to add some stuff, take some stuff away. And that's not a shock, because like I said, they're fundamentally different mediums, and you shouldn't present the show the same way as the game. There was even an interview recently where Neil was saying how the reason that the game was split the way that it was, basically you play the first half as Ellie, the second half as Abby, was because they experimented with splicing it like as they went, basically doing chapter 3 as Ellie on, you know, day 2 of Seattle or whatever, and then they would go and do day 2 as Abby and show you that, or even splice it amidst. So it's like you do the morning section with Ellie, then you do the afternoon section with Abby, and then you go to the evening with Ellie. They experimented with that, but what they found was having different loadouts, different abilities, different, if you play The Last of Us 2, you know, like there's the upgrade paths with crafting materials, with basically skills and things. That was too confusing for players. Players were constantly being like, oh, I thought I upgraded. Oh, that was on Ellie. Okay. And they got frustrated. And so they decided to just totally separate it out and split it, because it just wasn't working. In a TV show, you can do that much tighter integration, and it's not as jarring because you don't have to worry about the gameplay element. So we've known for a while that they were going to do things differently in the show, but what it seems is when you look at reviews and stuff from people that are not overly familiar with the games, those reviews are very, very positive and people absolutely eat it up. But when you look at reviews from people familiar or even like hardcore fans of The Last of Us Part 2 game, those people feel like some of the magic is lost here. And if Neil is like trying to be maybe overly aggressive with how he explains certain things or with certain pieces of exposition, that wouldn't really surprise me, because I think he wants to avoid people coming at him when they're confused or something. It might also just be a Craig Mazin influence as well. If he's like, yeah, I think that's too vague, we got to specify it more clearly. Either way, I think it's probably going to be pretty damn good. The first season was pretty damn good. I'm interested to see how it feels to watch Bella Ramsey do a lot of these scenes, which are very intense, and they're just a lot, because I think Bella just does not carry the same intimidating presence and screen presence as Ellie in the games did, where it's just different. It's just different. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. But I mean, they're basically saying what you want to hear. It's got very, very good reviews when you look at the consensus, and of course we'll see when they drop it, when it comes out and we can watch it. We'll see what we think, because you never know, sometimes reviewers are a little off. But as of right now, the reviews are quite positive, and overwhelmingly positive, dare I say. So I'm excited to see it. And I'm really curious where they end the season. I'm very curious. It has an 88 on Metacritic as well. Okay. Interesting. took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
In honor of The Walking Dead's pilot airing 14 years ago today, and the channel surpassing 1,000 subscribers, I decided it was finally time to create a video that I've wanted to make for quite a while now. And that's me showing my respect and appreciation to my favorite pilot of all time, Days Gone By. Days Gone By premiered on Halloween night of 2010 and garnered over 5 million live viewers. At the time of this recording, Days Gone By currently has a 9.2 rating on IMDb with over 31,000 reviews, and if you didn't realize that, that's like extremely good. I constantly see praise for this episode even by people who aren't the biggest fans of the Walking Dead franchise, and unfortunately, that's the majority of people nowadays. But why is that? What makes this episode of television so special? Well, I may be a bit biased since The Walking Dead is my favorite show and franchise of all time, but I like to think this episode deserves all the praise it gets and even more. I feel like I can't add on anything that hasn't already been said about this episode, but I will try my absolute best. So in my own personal opinion, this is why I think The Walking Dead's pilot needs to be studied. First off, the way the episode slowly opens with a vacant road as a police car slowly emerges is just brilliant. There's absolutely no dialogue spoken, and we're just dropped into the middle of this random highway on a random day with absolutely no context. We then quickly realize, as the title of the series suggests, that this is an apocalyptic story as we see our leading man travel through an abandoned gas station with lots and lots of vehicles that seem to have been here for quite some time, meaning that the apocalypse has already started and is also well established by this point in the story. This is confirmed when we see our first walker of the series, Summer, played by Addie Miller. Summer is one of the most iconic walkers we see in the whole series for multiple reasons. She's the first on-screen zombie we ever see, and she's holding a teddy bear, which means that she's a variant as explained in the final episodes of the series. And most importantly, she immediately establishes what kind of show this is going to be as we see her get put down as her body hits the ground and her stuffed animal goes flying. This isn't a standard episode of television. This scene directly leads into the iconic opening and title theme composed by Bear McCreary, which perfectly encapsulates the tone of the series, even farther depicting dark imagery and crediting the main cast overlaid with horror-inspired music. We then come back to a scene that predates the outbreak. We quickly learn these two men's names are Rick and Shane. They're both policemen in a small town and seem to be good friends, and Rick states that he has been having relationship issues with his wife Lori. I appreciate the seed being planted this early on because this information is definitely important for later. The boys in blue get called away to a speeding car chase where we finally get to meet our actual main characters, Leon Bassett and Officer Lamb.
Bruh.
Seriously though, how did Lamb get such a cult following on TikTok back in like 2022? Anyways, the King County police managed to stop the car, causing it to crash, but the passengers don't go down without a fight. Rick gets shot in the heat of the battle, but thankfully he's wearing a vest. The police successfully saved the day and none of them get hurt. Wait, you're telling me there's 56 minutes left of this episode? Damn, okay. Rick speaks too soon because he's shot again in the shoulder where he wasn't covered by his vest. All jokes aside, I absolutely love this moment because it's somewhat of a misdirect for comic fans watching for the first time to make them think the events of the series may start somewhat differently. Rick fades into his coma and we start the series we all know and love. Rick does wake up, only 59 days later, and quickly sees how deteriorated the hospital is in its current state. I feel like I don't even need to explain much for why this sequence deserves praise. Everything is top tier with the overall tone, camera work, set design, and especially Andy's reactions. This is when Rick sees his first corpse, and fortunately for him, it's not alive. And of course, I can't just not talk about Rick walking down the don't open dead inside hallway. I mean, when they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, I think of this scene right here. Rick walking barefoot directly on the debris wearing nothing but a hospital gown, the ceiling caving in, Rick slowly going towards the doors that scream impending doom. Andrew Lincoln and Frank Darabont absolutely cooked with this whole sequence.
Someone cooked here.
Rick eventually makes it outside and sees hundreds upon hundreds of corpses. I personally couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be in this situation. However, I think Andrew Lincoln perfectly conveys an array of emotions without even having to say a word. I guess Rick is tired of being barefoot, so he picks up a bicycle, but not without seeing another iconic ass walker that is. Of course, Bicycle Girl. Rick makes it home and obviously no one is there. It's the apocalypse, bruh. And here I'm going to absolutely glaze Andrew Lincoln's performance once again because he brings his A game through this entire episode, but especially this scene when he's questioning his sanity and reality.
Is this real? Am I here? Wake up.
Rick walks outside and sees his first walking walker, technically, but he's blinded by the sun, so he thinks it's an actual living person. I love this misdirect right here as we see a figure approaching Rick because the audience assumes it's a zombie, but it's anything but as Rick gets hit in the face with a shovel and Rick in a daze mistakes the boy for Carl. This is when we're introduced to a fan favorite The Walking Dead character, Morgan Jones, and his son Dwayne as Morgan shoots the walker and Rick passes out. Morgan's about to explain everything about the wildfire outbreak to Rick and the audience as well, which I think was the perfect way to deliver exposition for this newly changed world. Morgan is demanding to know if Rick got bit, but Rick tries to convince him again and again that he just got shot and didn't get any other injuries. I love the setting of the Joneses' makeshift house because although all of this scene just takes place in a normal standard looking house, you really get the feel that this world that we once knew is all gone, with the windows being covered and handheld lanterns being used, and also the storage of food and water just being out in the open. I really like the overall green and yellow tones of the house. It just looks so good on the 16mm film. When Rick finally walks out, he immediately recognizes the house as Fred and Sidney Drake's, and I like this detail because it just reiterates to the audience that Rick is from a small area and knew everyone in the community. This is when Rick and we as the audience learn one of the most important facts about the zombies in this universe. They're attracted to sound, which draws them into groups. They're grouped right outside the house, and Morgan advises Rick to not open the windows so the walkers aren't drawn to the light in the house. Speaking of walkers, this is when we first hear Morgan say the term, and the survivors throughout the remainder of the series will continue to mainly use this term to describe the dead. This is also when Morgan describes how to take down walkers. They only go down with headshots. Boom! Headshot! As Rick is explaining to Morgan and Dwayne that he's a sheriff's deputy and not a bank robber, a walker from outside bumps a car, causing it to sound the alarms, which in turn causes more walkers to group up. This causes a specific walker to show up on the doorstep of the home, which is revealed to be Jenny, Morgan's wife who died and turned. Jenny is also one of the most iconic walkers because of how creepily she moves as she stares down the peephole and turns the doorknob completely on her own. Before we fade into the next morning, we get a specific look from Rick that makes it seem like he's wondering if his wife has suffered the same fate as Morgan's. The next morning is when we see Rick actually take out his first walker, which is quite the struggle for him at first. This is another reason why I love the decision to make the protagonist be in a coma for the first 2 months of the outbreak, because while the rest of our characters have slowly adjusted to this world, Rick is experiencing absolutely everything for the first time, and you already know I'm going to praise Andrew Lincoln's performance once again. Rick takes the pair back to his house to show them why he's fully convinced his family is alive. He explains to Morgan that since there's no family portraits or pictures in the house, he knows for a fact that Lori and Carl were at least alive when they left. This is when Morgan and Dwayne tell Rick to leave and go look for them in Atlanta, and that there was a refugee center set up at the very start of the outbreak, and the CDC is also mentioned, which foreshadows the season's finale. Before Rick heads into the city, he makes a stop at his place of work, the police station, and brings Morgan and Dwayne along to get cleaned up and to stock up on supplies. Rick gives Morgan a rifle and a radio to contact him every morning, but I'm sure these items won't be important later on. Before they separate, Morgan tells Rick that the walkers aren't much of a threat, one at a time, but if they group up, that he needs to be careful.
They may not seem like much one at a time, but in a group all riled up and hungry, man, you watch your ass.
And this is when The Walking Dead pulls a Game of Thrones, because in the very first episode, they kill off their main character, Leon Bassett.
What?
Rick is finally on his way to hopefully find his family, but not before making a couple pit stops. He returns the bicycle girl to properly put her down and apologizes for what happened to her. This scene is also intermixed with Morgan attempting but failing to put down his reanimated wife, and I just can't get over how brilliantly put together this sequence is, seeing the two main characters of the pilot struggling to come to terms with the world of the outbreak. I've praised Andy time and time again, but it's also time for me to give Lenny James his flowers because he does such a damn good job as well. The casting directors absolutely could not have done better when it comes to these two. This whole pilot relies pretty much on these two roles, and I don't think it would be praised anywhere near as much if it wasn't for their top-notch performances. We cut to Rick making his way to Atlanta, and he's attempting to contact absolutely anyone on the radio. This is when we see this random blonde girl actually hear the message and try to talk, but there's interference. This guy then slams down his axe. And what do you know? It's the dude from the beginning of the episode. Little does Shane know that his former partner is on the other end of the radio. Unfortunately for Rick, it seems like the city is extremely dangerous as the people at the camp say they should have gone through with putting up signs and warning people away from the city. Shane and this woman argue about their problems for a bit before making up and making out before being interrupted by her son. We then go back to Rick's car when the audience is hit with the realization that this is Lori and Carl. These 2 months have not been kind to Rick, and he doesn't even know the half of it. I love the way this reveal was done because it's the perfect way for us to 1, meet Carl and Lori and see them on screen for the first time, and 2, for us to realize that even if Rick finds his family, all of his problems aren't just going to suddenly disappear. The Walking Dead just became a family drama. It's also the perfect excuse for Rick to be taking this picture along with him because he suddenly runs out of gas and has to make the rest of the trip on foot, for now at least. Now it makes sense why Rick was looking for gas earlier, and now we have complete context for the cold open. Rick walks up to this house looking for gas, and to no one but Rick's surprise, he walks up upon a bloody hell if I've ever seen one. Rick has to take a moment to himself, which is just another small instance of him coming to terms with the world he now lives in, and just when he's about to give up on gas, he realizes there's a perfectly good horse for him to ride. Rick tells this horse all it needs to hear to try to convince it to let them go to Atlanta, and it works. Is your favorite fictional character a horse whisperer? I didn't think so. The pair ride off towards the city, and apparently the hat actually flew off of Lincoln in this shot, and I almost don't believe that, just because of how good and how real the hat on him looks. I don't know how hard it is to mask out a flying hat and then replace it on the head, but for television standards, and for a show that's literally just starting, I think that's extremely impressive VFX. And here we are. This scene right here. If you didn't think I was going to make a big deal out of this shot, you are absolutely delusional. If what I said earlier about Rick walking up to the don't open dead inside doors being worth 1,000 words is true, then this scene is worth like 1,000,000. It's that good. This very image right here just may be the most iconic shot of The Walking Dead. It tells a whole story. You see the skyline of a broken Atlanta, the long broken road in front of Rick, the vehicles all trying to escape the city, Rick being on fucking horseback, just absolutely brilliant. And the fact that this shot is the main poster for the first season, they couldn't have gone with a better image to promote their show. Enough yapping about one specific shot. Rick makes his way into the city and obviously quickly realizes that it's pretty much empty. I truly wish we got to spend more time actually in Atlanta in the show because this is when I think The Walking Dead is at its best, seeing huge rundown cities like this. When Rick pisses off a couple walkers that start to follow him, he passes a tank, which is a crazy sight to see in the middle of the road in the city. But then all of a sudden he hears something in the sky, and in the reflection of one of the skyscrapers, he sees what seems to be a helicopter, although he never actually lays eyes on it himself. This doesn't have to do with the pilot itself, but this may have been some insane intentional foreshadowing for farther down the line in the universe. Rick immediately chases the helicopter, but all of a sudden learns that walkers get thirsty too. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, he's actually screwed because there are hundreds and hundreds of walkers around the corner, and Rick realizes immediately what Morgan meant earlier. Rick tries to run away, but is immediately surrounded, and this is when we get our second main character death, the Days Gone By horse, which quickly becomes a tasty snack. The horse being a snack actually saves Rick's life though, because he immediately gets away and crawls under the tank, but the walkers obviously follow him. We see him fire exactly 5 shots before contemplating taking himself out. Now I don't know if this is intentional or it's just bad ADR, but I absolutely love how we actually get to hear the inside of Rick's mind rather than this being spoken dialogue.
Lori, Carl, I'm sorry.
Seconds before he pulls the trigger, Rick looks up and sees an opening in the bottom of the tank. He's relieved to be alive and cuddles up next to Sam Witwer as a walker, who never got his standalone episode like he was going to in Season 2, but that's besides the point. Rick quickly has to use his last bullet because the walker quickly comes to life and tries to eat him. Rick wigs out due to the close range shot 0.2 away from his ear for a bit until he realizes he needs to shut the hatch at the top of the tank where the previously established walker from inside the bus creepily looks at him for a second. It's not looking good for our hero. He's completely surrounded with little to no ammo in a confined space. He takes a moment to process the past couple of days he's experienced when he's interrupted by radio static and then a voice.
Dumbass. Yeah, you in the tank. Cozy in there?
Space Junk by Wang Chung plays behind an aerial shot of the horse being eaten and Rick being surrounded by the walkers in the tank. The lyrics of Space Junk perfectly describes Rick's newfound situation. Welcome to my world. Welcome to my only world. This is Rick's life whether he accepts it or not, and it seems that things will never go back to how they were. The episode ends and the credits roll. What else can I say besides what a masterpiece episode of television? Days Gone By cemented itself by being one of the best episodes of The Walking Dead and one of the overall best pilots of all time by being beautifully shot and directed, having unexpected reveals and top-notch writing, and having well-acted leads that are an absolute joy to follow. Just within the span of 67 minutes, we as the audience care about Rick Grimes and want him to succeed in his journey, even when all the odds are stacked against him. I first watched this episode in 2015 and absolutely fell in love with The Walking Dead. Rick Grimes is my favorite fictional character of all time, and as I've previously mentioned, The Walking Dead is my favorite franchise, even beyond the show. If it wasn't for this pilot, none of that would be possible. So as an avid fan of this universe, I just want to thank everyone involved with the production of not only this pilot, but the show, graphic novel, games, merchandise, and absolutely anything and everything. I couldn't imagine my life without The Walking Dead in it, and I'm sure a lot of fans feel the exact same way that I do. If you enjoyed the video and want to support me and my channel, please consider subscribing.
So Marvel Rivals, this has been a pretty popular thing. I know it sounds crazy, but they added a white blonde girl with a big ass and big tits.
The White Queen's reign begins.
Jesus Christ. Oh, so she's like Zarya. This is really cool. I'm gonna play this character. So she can even CC them? She's a tank too.
That's White Queen mind control.
Oh my god. And so a lot of people have been unhappy about it because they thought that this character was Gooner bait. Oh, this is one of her new outfits too. Yeah. This is gaming now. I don't know how to explain it. I'm all for female characters being hot and owning sexuality, but it leaves a bad taste in my mouth for rivals knowing that it's coming from a male gaze point of view. Marvel so blatantly panders to gooners that it puts me off the game. Like it's a hero shooter. We don't need jiggle physics on a character's thighs, chest, and butt. Yeah, we do. Can we stop having this dumb comparison acting like these are similar? Both of these men have no cheeks out on display, so please be silent. You have to understand that the difference between America and China when they're making video games is that China makes video games to make money and America makes video games to send a message. And the reason why is because this is what people want. You want to make Concord? Go make Concord. But the fact is that characters that are attractive and appealing are popular, and if you appeal to insecure fat Karens on the internet, all you're going to have playing your game are insecure fat Karens. And based off of Concord, that doesn't really seem like it's a good business proposition. That's really it. Crowd War Stars on MSNBC to defend.
But this is the